Are you working on popper number 16? In this video, I'll give you a few tips on how you can master the popper etude number 16. Hi, my name is Liz from Cellomoji.com, and I help you learn to play the cello for all of those moments in your life. If you're new to this channel, consider hitting that subscribe button and the bell next to it so you won't miss out on any other Cellomoji videos. The first word is capriccioso. This is found in the beginning of the etude, which means in a free and impulsive light style. This is really important to note because then it will help you to decide what kind of bow stroke do you want to do when you're playing this etude. So if it's too heavy and aggressive, then it won't really be in the style of the etude. And yes, I know etudes can be a little bit boring, especially, popper isn't always the most interesting thing, let's be honest here. But if you can concentrate on how you can get your bow stroke sounding light and energetic, that will actually help how you're playing the etude. Okay, if you are doing this for an all-state audition, they specifically always notate a tempo marking for the etude. In this case, it is 108 to 118 to the quarter note, and I think it's really important that you pay attention to this. So in other words, if you have not started practicing with a metronome, that should be the first thing that you do. 108 obviously is the minimum tempo, so when you are practicing, I wouldn't recommend you start at 108. Start a little bit slower so that you can really master your stroke and the left hand articulation and intonation as well. And once you master that, then you can start inching up the metronome tempo until you get within that range of 108 to 118. The main thing is that sometimes with these tempos that are set, we can sometimes try to push it to the faster edge. I think sometimes it's not really good to just go as fast as possible, but instead you really want a nice, steady, calm feeling that's portrayed when you're playing. So really pay attention to the tempo that you are picking. Articulation. This is really important because unlike some other popper etudes where it is really darn difficult to play the etude and worry about all these things, this etude itself really gives you a little bit of a luxury so that you can really concentrate on getting a consistent bow stroke. So in other words, dots that are in there, make sure that all of the eighth note dots or short notes are all consistently the same, and really pay attention to which of those slurs are smooth and which of them are broken up, and you really want to make sure that they are consistent across the board. This is something that especially if you are playing this for an audition situation, you can safely assume probably a lot of people will be able to play this etude really well. What will help you stand out is paying attention to those little details such as like how smooth are the slurs, how long are the eighth notes, do they all sound the same? These are really important things to pay attention to. So alongside with articulation, I have gotten questions about do I bounce my bow or do I not bounce my bow? And my answer to you is just keep the bow stroke consistent. So if you choose to have a more on the string stroke, it is important that suddenly halfway through you don't change, because more often than not your arm is going to find a way to find this happy medium. And so what's more important is to really listen to the sound that you are producing. Make sure it is the same across the entire etude or excerpt of etude that you're playing. Keep in mind here, the Roman numerals that are listed in this etude indicate the string that you should be on and not the position. I don't know why this is still a thing, but apparently in more like earlier cello music, sometimes they actually do use the Roman numerals to mark position. But I will just say this right now and again, that usually when you get into more advanced music, they won't really list what position you're in. I mean, at the end of the day, it kind of doesn't really matter. You just have to play the notes. So in fact, the Roman numerals are more helpful to indicate what string you're on, so that will help with the fingering and playing of the harder passages. Hint for when you're playing the harmonics, when you are going higher up the fingerboard, make sure your bow also goes higher up. So basically by the last harmonic, you should actually be almost to the bridge. This will give the most distance between your left and right hands and will also help bringing out the harmonics on the string, because sometimes no matter what you're doing, it just doesn't speak very well. The first thing you should try is to try to push your bow a little bit closer to the bridge, and you'll find that will really help with the sound. You can definitely talk with your teacher about this, but sometimes you'll notice that when there are a lot of notes that have the same rhythm across a long span of time, that sometimes the rhythms start to get a little bit funky where the notes actually aren't very even. So I usually recommend to my students to do rhythm practice. In this case, since they're a group of threes, you would do like first note is long, and then 2 and 3 are fast, and then second note is long, and then 3 and 1 are short, and then you do 1 and 2 as the fast notes, and you hold 3 as the long notes. So by alternating which note you are holding longer, it sort of helps with evening out the notes. So talk to your teacher about rhythm practice, and if you have any other questions about rhythm practice, you can leave them below. I'll try to make a video more about rhythm practice because I feel like it is really helpful in making things easier to play them evenly and also to be able to play things quickly. Dynamic levels. Now, I know that there are not many dynamics in this etude. Plus, on top of it, it is a proper etude, which again, I understand some people just don't find very interesting. But it is actually up to you to make things interesting. So what dynamic levels they are written, make sure that you are really emphasizing that, and then try to think in terms of shapes, like clearly not all of the notes are just one level. Some are gonna have a shape to them, some are leading you somewhere else. Try to use that to your advantage when you are trying to decide what is your dynamic level. The main question you should be asking is, how can I make this more interesting while still maintaining all the clarity that you put in with all of your hard work? Accents. Make sure that the accents are coming out. Again, there's not really much in this etude that's printed in there, so you have to make the most of what is actually in there. Okay, so the squiggly line means these turns where you're starting from the note, above the note, and then back to the starting note. These turns, you have to make sure that you're doing them in time. There really is no indication saying that you can take your time with these turns. You really want to just stay in the rhythm while you're playing it. So really practice getting into the turns and continuing after the turns, because I'm sure you can do things just fine when you're right on it and you're starting right on it, and that usually isn't the problem. It's usually coming from the note before, landing on the turn, and then the note afterwards. To get that all in the same timing, that can be a challenge. So make sure you're practicing that transition and the turn itself as well. Just remember, there's a reason why proper etudes are such a standard for all cello players, from the average like high school student all the way up through college. Like, proper etudes are a huge standard, so don't get too frustrated with yourself. Just keep working at it. These etudes are definitely helping you get to be a better cellist. If you have any questions that I haven't addressed, be sure to list them in the comment box below. Give me a thumbs up if you are determined to master proper number 16. And be sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell next to it if you haven't already done so, so you will keep an eye out for other Cellomoji videos. Thanks again for watching, and see you in the next video. Bye!